The space around the jump point shimmered like water disturbed by a stone. Then, with a flash of blue light, the human vessel Defiance emerged into normal space. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, watching the stars settle into their proper positions on the main screen. "Navigation, where are we?" she asked her crew. Lieutenant Chen checked his instruments twice before answering. "We're in the neutral zone, Captain. Grid reference matches our target perfectly." Elena nodded. After months of traveling through empty space, they had finally reached the heart of galactic civilization. The Defiance was humanity's first official contact mission, though they had been watching from the shadows for decades. Hidden observation posts had taught them about the 5 species that ruled this galaxy with iron fists. The hegemony, they called themselves. 5 ancient alien races who had divided the galaxy between them 300 years ago. The Dominari with their crystal ships and telepathic powers, the Vorthak and their living metal technology, the Zaraf who could bend space itself, the Morden whose weapons could crack planets, and the mysterious Kethvar who rarely showed themselves but commanded respect from all others. These 5 species controlled everything. Hundreds of younger races served them as vassals, paying tribute and following orders without question. The galaxy lived in fear of the hegemony's power. "Captain," called Ensign Torres from the communication station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple ships approaching fast." Elena wasn't surprised. They had expected this moment. "How many ships?" 12. No, 15 contacts. They're big, Captain. Much bigger than us. The Defiance was a good ship, but it was built for exploration, not war. 200 meters long with a crew of 200 humans. Compared to the massive hegemony warships they had observed, it looked like a fishing boat next to aircraft carriers. "Open a channel," Elena ordered. "Let's make history." The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of stars, it now showed the interior of an alien ship. The being on the screen was tall and thin, with purple skin that seemed to glow. Crystals grew from its head like a crown. Elena recognized it as a Dominari, unknown vessel. The alien spoke, its voice carrying an odd musical quality. "You will identify yourself immediately. This space belongs to the hegemony." Elena stepped forward. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human exploration vessel Defiance. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact with your government." The Dominari's large eyes narrowed. "Human, we have no record of this species. You will submit to inspection and surrender your vessel." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Elena replied calmly. "We represent the United Terran Federation. We wish to establish formal relations with the Hegemony Council." A sound came from the alien that might have been laughter, but it was cold and cruel. "You misunderstand your situation, Primitive. All who enter hegemony space become vassals. There are no exceptions." Elena felt her crew's eyes on her. This was the moment they had prepared for. Every simulation, every training exercise had led to this conversation. "With respect, Ambassador, we decline your offer of vassalage. Humanity prefers to stand as equals." The silence that followed lasted nearly 10 seconds. In that time, Elena could see the Dominari's expression change from amusement to shock to anger. "Equals?" The word came out like a curse. "No species has claimed equality with the hegemony for 3 centuries. You will reconsider or face the consequences." "We understand the risks," Elena said. "But humanity has never bowed to anyone. We won't start now." The alien leaned forward, and suddenly Elena felt something trying to push into her mind. It was like cold fingers probing at her thoughts, seeking entry. She had been warned about this. The Dominari's telepathic abilities were legendary, but the mental attack found nothing to grab onto. Elena's mind remained her own, untouched by the alien's power. Around her she could see her crew standing firm as well. The Dominari's eyes widened with something that looked like fear. "Impossible," the alien whispered. "You resist the mind touch. What are you?" "We're human," Elena said simply. "And we're here to talk. Will you take us to your council?" The Dominari struggled to maintain its composure. For centuries, its people had controlled others through mental domination. No species had ever been immune to their power. "The council will see you," the alien finally said, "but not as equals. You will come as prisoners to answer for your defiance." The screen went dark. Elena turned to her crew, who were all looking at her with nervous excitement. "Well," she said with a slight smile, "that went better than expected." "Better?" asked Lieutenant Chen. "Captain, they're treating us like criminals." "Chen, think about what just happened. For 300 years, no one has said no to the hegemony. No one has resisted their mind control. We just did both in the same conversation. Communications Officer Torres spoke up. Captain, I'm monitoring their fleet communications. They're confused and angry. They keep talking about the humans who cannot be touched by thought. Elena nodded. This was exactly what Earth strategists had hoped for. Humanity's immunity to telepathic control wasn't just a defense, it was a psychological weapon. Species that had ruled through mental domination for centuries suddenly faced someone they couldn't control. Engineering, Elena called. How are our systems? All green, Captain, came the reply. Jump drive is ready if we need to leave quickly. Good, but we're not running. Not yet. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the hegemony ships surrounding them. We came here to make contact, and that's what we're going to do. Over the next hour, the alien fleet escorted the Defiance toward the nearest hegemony station. Elena used the time to observe their captors. The alien ships were beautiful but arrogant in their design. They relied on energy shields and powerful weapons, but their formation showed they hadn't faced real opposition in generations. The station they approached was massive, a crystal structure the size of a small moon. As they drew closer, Elena could see thousands of ships docked there representing dozens of different species. All vassals of the hegemony, bringing tribute to their masters, Captain, Torres said quietly. I'm picking up communications from some of those ships. They're talking about us. Word is spreading that a new species just told the Dominari to go jump in a black hole. Elena smiled. Good, let them talk. The Defiance was guided into a small docking bay deep inside the station. As the ship settled onto the landing platform, Elena gathered her senior staff. Remember the plan, she told them. We're here to plant a seed. Every species in this galaxy thinks the hegemony is unbeatable. We're going to show them that's not true. Through the viewports, they could see alien security forces gathering outside. Hundreds of different species, all wearing the same uniforms, all serving the same masters. Captain, asked Lieutenant Chen, what if this doesn't work? What if they just execute us? Elena looked out at the alien crowd. Somewhere among those faces, she hoped to see curiosity instead of fear, questions instead of blind obedience. Then at least they'll remember that someone tried, she said. But I don't think it will come to that. We're about to give this galaxy something it hasn't had in 300 years. What's that, Captain? Hope. The airlock opened, and Captain Elena Vasquez stepped out to meet the representatives of galactic civilization. Behind her walked 200 humans who refused to bow. Around them watched 1,000 aliens who had forgotten what freedom looked like. History was about to change. 3 days after the humans docked at Hegemony Station, Ambassador Zekthul of the Dominari sat in the High Council chamber. The other 4 hegemony leaders watched him with expressions ranging from anger to curiosity. You allowed them to leave? Growled War Master Thok of the Morden. His massive form, covered in natural armor plates, radiated barely controlled violence. 3 days of talks and you let the primitives return to their ship? Zekthul's crystal crown flickered with nervous energy. They would not submit. Our mind touch cannot reach them. They speak of rights and freedoms as if such concepts have meaning. Fleet Commander Exius of the Vorthak leaned forward. His ship-bonded cybernetic implants glowed as he accessed combat data. Their vessel carries primitive weapons, chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Yet they show no fear, whispered the Kethvar representative from the shadows. The mysterious species rarely spoke, but when they did, others listened. Fear has been our tool for control. Without it, what power do we have? Spacebender Yith of the Zareth made a dismissive gesture that folded the air around her hand. We have the power to destroy them. One ship against our fleets? They are insects. Zekthul had hoped the other council members would share his growing unease. The humans had been polite but absolutely firm. They refused vassalage. They spoke of representing something called a federation of worlds. Most disturbing of all, they acted as if the hegemony was just another government to negotiate with, not the supreme power in the galaxy. I recommend we destroy them now, War Master Thok declared, before their defiance spreads to the vassal species. Agreed, said Fleet Commander Exius. A quick demonstration will restore order. Zekthul wanted to argue, but he could feel the council's mood. They were afraid, though none would admit it. The humans represented something new and unpredictable. Better to crush them quickly and pretend the threat never existed. Very well, he said reluctantly. Deploy a punishment fleet. 50 ships should be sufficient. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Captain Vasquez was making her own preparations. The talks had gone exactly as Earth's diplomats had predicted. The hegemony saw only two options: submission or destruction. "Captain," reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez, "all systems are ready. The new equipment Earth sent us is fully integrated." Elena nodded. The Defiance might look like a simple exploration ship, but Earth scientists had given it some surprises. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. "Communications," she ordered. "Send a message to the fleet. Tell them we're about to find out if our theories about hegemony tactics are correct." Lieutenant Torres looked confused. "What fleet, Captain?" "We're one ship," Elena smiled. "All in good time, Torres. For now, just trust the plan." An hour later, the hegemony punishment fleet emerged from hyperspace. 50 ships in perfect formation, led by the battle cruiser Eternal Dominion. Each ship was 5 times the size of the Defiance, armed with weapons that could level cities. Admiral Kresh of the Vorthak commanded the fleet from his flagship. His cybernetic implants showed him complete tactical data on the human vessel. One small ship with primitive weapons against 50 advanced warships. It would be over in minutes. "Human vessel," he broadcast. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Captain Vasquez appeared on his screen, still showing no fear. "Admiral, we tried to resolve this peacefully. But if you insist on violence, we'll defend ourselves." Kresh couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You cannot be serious. You are one ship against 50. "Yes," Elena said calmly. "But you're forgetting something important." "What could we possibly be forgetting?" "You've never fought humans before." The transmission ended. Kresh gave the order to attack. The punishment fleet opened fire with energy weapons that could melt starship armor in seconds. But the beam struck the Defiance's shields and scattered harmlessly. The human ship's defensive systems used principles the hegemony had never encountered: magnetic field manipulation that bent energy attacks away from the hull. Before the aliens could adjust their weapons, the Defiance struck back. But instead of energy beams, it fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Kinetic kill vehicles that the hegemony's energy shields couldn't stop. 3 alien ships exploded as tungsten rods punched through their hulls. "Impossible," Kresh shouted. "Their weapons are primitive." But primitive didn't mean ineffective. While the hegemony had focused on energy weapons for centuries, humans had perfected the art of throwing rocks really, really fast. And unlike energy beams, rocks didn't care about shields. The human ship moved like nothing the Admiral had ever seen. Instead of the stately maneuvers of hegemony vessels, it twisted and spun through space with violent grace. Kresh realized too late that human ships were designed by a species that had fought wars in 3 dimensions, while the hegemony had grown comfortable with ceremonial battles. "Deploy gravity mines," Elena ordered. Dozens of small devices launched from the Defiance. They looked harmless until they activated, each one creating a localized gravity well. Suddenly, the hegemony formation was trapped in invisible whirlpools of twisted space. Ships that tried to maneuver found themselves pulled off course or slammed into each other. "What is this technology?" Kresh demanded over the fleet channel. His science officer's voice was shaky with fear. "They're using artificial gravity generators as weapons, sir. We never considered such a use." That was the hegemony's weakness, Elena realized as she watched the enemy fleet struggle. They had ruled for so long that they had forgotten how to innovate. Their technology was powerful but predictable. They followed the same tactics because no one had ever forced them to change. The Defiance moved through the gravity fields like a dancer, its navigation systems designed to handle such obstacles. Human engineers had learned to work with gravity, not just against it. The ship's weapons found target after target as confused alien vessels tried to escape the gravity traps. "Sir," called Kresh's tactical officer, 20 ships disabled, 12 destroyed. "The humans are jamming our communications." Indeed they were. The Defiance was broadcasting on all frequencies, not just to interfere with hegemony communications, but to make sure every ship in the sector could watch the battle. Elena wanted the galaxy to see what was happening. "All ships," Kresh ordered desperately, "focus fire on the human vessel. Ignore formation protocols." But the remaining hegemony ships were panicking. For 3 centuries, they had fought only ceremonial battles against helpless vassals. They had no experience with an enemy that fought back effectively. When half their fleet was destroyed in the first 10 minutes, discipline collapsed. Some ships tried to ram the Defiance, only to be destroyed by point defense systems that fired streams of metal fragments. Others attempted to retreat, but the gravity mines made escape impossible. A few brave crews kept fighting, but they were trained for duels between energy weapon ships, not this three-dimensional chaos. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, only 15 hegemony ships remained functional, and most of those were heavily damaged. The Defiance hung in space, surrounded by debris and disabled vessels, its hull scorched but intact. Admiral Kresh found himself staring at the human captain on his screen again. His flagship's weapons were offline. His crew was requesting permission to abandon ship, and his certainty about hegemony superiority lay in ruins around him. "Admiral," Elena said quietly, "we came in peace. You chose war. Now you know what humans are capable of when we fight back." She gestured to something off-screen, and Kresh realized the humans were broadcasting this conversation across the galaxy. Every vassal world, every hegemony station, every ship in space would see this moment. "This doesn't end here," Elena continued. "Your council attacked us without provocation. We defended ourselves, but if the hegemony wants a war, humanity will give you one you'll never forget." The transmission ended, leaving Kresh alone with the wreckage of his fleet. On 1,000 worlds, vassal species watched the impossible footage. A single human ship had defeated 50 hegemony warships. The overlords, who had seemed invincible for 3 centuries, had been humbled by creatures they had never heard of. In hidden bases and secret meeting places across the galaxy, rebellion leaders who had given up hope began to make plans. The hegemony could be beaten. The humans had proved it. War was coming to the galaxy. And for the first time in 300 years, the vassals believed they might win. The footage of the Battle of Neutral Zone spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every civilized world had seen the impossible. A single human ship destroying half a hegemony punishment fleet. The video showed alien warships, mighty, vessels that had kept the peace for centuries, being torn apart by weapons the hegemony had dismissed as primitive. On Krilla Prime, deep in the mining tunnels where surveillance was weak, Resistance leader Tamseth gathered his followers around a hidden communication device. The footage played for the 4th time, and still none of them could quite believe it. "The humans did what we never could," whispered Gentar, her insectoid features showing amazement. "They made the Dominari bleed." Tamseth nodded slowly. His people had fought the hegemony for 50 years, using guerrilla tactics and hidden bases. They had won small victories, rescued captured comrades, disrupted tribute shipments, but they had never dared dream of open battle with hegemony warships. "Send word to all cells," he ordered. "The time has come. If the humans can face the overlords, in open space we can strike here on our own world." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. On the ocean world of Tapani, the aquatic resistance destroyed 3 tribute collection platforms in a single coordinated strike. The Valdris mining colonies declared independence and sealed their asteroid bases. 12 other worlds saw uprisings within days of the human victory, but it was in the Hegemony Council chambers that the real panic was setting in. 17 worlds in open rebellion, reported Fleet Commander Xez, his cybernetic implants flickering with stress patterns. The humans broadcast their victory to every corner of the galaxy. "Our vassals believe we can be defeated." Warmaster Thok slammed his armored fist on the council table. "Because we can be defeated. One ship destroyed 50 of our finest vessels. How is that possible?" Zekthul's crystal crown was dim with shame. "Their technology operates on principles we abandoned centuries ago. Kinetic weapons, gravity manipulation, electromagnetic warfare. We focused so completely on energy systems that we forgot other approaches existed." The Kethavar representative spoke from the shadows. "More dangerous than their technology is their attitude. They do not fear us. Fear has been the foundation of our control. Without it, we rule nothing," finished Spacebender Yith. She folded space around herself in agitation, creating ripples in the air. "The vassals have remembered they outnumber us 1,000 to 1. The irony was not lost on any of them. For 3 centuries, the hegemony had maintained peace through overwhelming force. They had become so powerful that no one dared challenge them. But in becoming unbeatable, They had also become complacent. They had forgotten how to actually fight. "What do we know about their homeworld?" asked War Master Dr. X's consulted his data files. The vessel Defiance came from the direction of the Outer Rim. Our long-range sensors detected no major populations in that region. They could have colonies anywhere, Zekthul pointed out. If they have been watching us for decades, they would know to hide their settlements. The council fell silent as the implications hit them. They faced an unknown enemy of uncertain strength, whose very existence inspired rebellion across the galaxy. "We mobilize everything," War Master Thok declared. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. We find their homeworld and destroy it completely. When the vassals see human worlds burning, they will remember their place." "And if they have more ships like the Defiance?" asked the Kethfar. "Then we learn to fight again," Thok replied grimly. Meanwhile, the Defiance was heading toward a rendezvous point in an empty star system. Captain Vasquez sat in her ready room reviewing after-action reports. The battle had gone better than even Earth's optimists had predicted. Not only had they proven human weapons could hurt hegemony ships, they had shown the galaxy that the overlords could be beaten. "Captain," came Lieutenant Torres's voice over the intercom. "We're approaching the rendezvous coordinates." Elena made her way to the bridge. On the main screen, space seemed empty, but that was about to change. "Send the activation signal," she ordered. Torres transmitted a coded burst. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space began to shimmer as cloaking fields deactivated. One by one, ships appeared until over 100 vessels hung in formation around the Defiance. They were not all human ships. Most were converted civilian vessels, freighters, mining ships, colony transports, that had been secretly modified over decades. But scattered among them were purpose-built warships that Earth had been constructing in hidden shipyards. "Welcome to the real war," Elena said to her crew. The Defiance was just the opening act. Admiral Sarah Chen materialized on the main screen, broadcasting from the command ship Liberty. "Captain Vasquez, excellent work. Your victory has given us everything we hoped for." "Thank you, Admiral. What are our orders?" "The hegemony is mobilizing their entire fleet to hunt for Earth. They'll never find it. Our homeworld is too well hidden. But while they're searching, we're going to hit them where it hurts. We're going to liberate their vassal worlds." Elena smiled. This was the plan Earth had been working toward for 50 years. While the hegemony had grown comfortable and lazy, humanity had been preparing. They had studied every alien species, learned their languages, understood their grievances against their overlords. "Our first target," Admiral Chen continued, "is the Tapani system. The aquatic resistance has already begun their uprising, but they need support. We're going to give it to them." The human fleet moved out, leaving the empty rendezvous point behind. But they were not alone. Throughout the galaxy, resistance movements that had been dormant for decades were stirring to life. On Krilla Prime, Tamzeth led his fighters in a daring raid on the planetary capital. They didn't try to hold territory. That would come later. Instead, they struck the communication centers and government buildings, making sure every citizen knew the rebellion had begun. The hegemony garrison responded exactly as expected. They used overwhelming force against civilian areas, hoping to terrorize the population into submission. But the strategy that had worked for centuries was failing. The people had seen human ships defeat hegemony fleets. They were no longer afraid. In the Valdris asteroid belt, the mining colonies had sealed themselves behind force fields and defensive platforms. When hegemony ships arrived to restore order, they found themselves facing an enemy that knew how to use the asteroid field as cover. The confined space negated the aliens' numerical advantage and gave the miners' smaller ships the initiative. The aquatic Tapani were perhaps the most effective of all. Their homeworld was 90% ocean, and the hegemony had never understood underwater warfare. When Tapani submarines began sinking tribute ships, the overlords found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see or reach. It was into this chaos that the human fleet arrived. The Liberty and its escorts dropped out of hyperspace just as a hegemony force was bombing Tapani coastal cities in retaliation for the submarine attacks. "All ships, Admiral Chen broadcast on an open channel. "This is the Human Liberation Fleet. Any hegemony vessel attacking civilian targets will be destroyed." The alien commander, a Dominari named Veltar, appeared on screen. His crystal crown blazed with arrogance. "Humans, you dare interfere with hegemony justice? We dare to stop genocide," Chen replied calmly. "Leave now or face the consequences." Veltar gestured dismissively. "You have perhaps 20 ships against my 100. Your victory at neutral zone was luck. It will not happen again." "You're right," Admiral Chen said. "It won't happen again. This time we're not alone." At her signal, the ocean around the hegemony fleet erupted. Hundreds of Tipani submarines surfaced, their weapons trained on the alien ships from below. At the same time, space shimmered as more human vessels decloaked. "You see," Chen continued, "we didn't come to fight you. We came to fight with them." The battle was over in minutes. Caught between human warships above and Tipani submarines below, the hegemony force never had a chance. More importantly, the entire engagement was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time in 3 centuries, vassal species and their oppressors stood side by side as equals in battle. The message was clear. The age of hegemony domination was ending. Within hours, uprisings spread to 50 worlds. The Krillian resistance emerged from hiding with weapons and ships they had been building in secret for decades. The Valdris miners declared their asteroid belt a free zone and offered sanctuary to refugees from other worlds. The galaxy was at war. But for the first time since the hegemony's rise, the outcome was not certain. The overlords had superior technology and numbers, but the rebels had something more powerful: hope. And they had allies who had turned the art of war into a science, species who had spent their entire history learning how to fight against impossible odds and win. The humans had arrived, and they had brought revolution with them. The war had been raging for 8 months when the hegemony finally located humanity's main fleet base. Deep in a forgotten nebula, the humans had built a massive shipyard complex called Haven Station. It served as headquarters for the rebellion and sanctuary for refugees from across the galaxy. Admiral Elena Vasquez, promoted after her success with the Defiance, stood in the station's command center watching intelligence reports flood in. The war was going better than anyone had dared hope. 17 star systems had declared independence, and the rebellion was spreading to new worlds every week. "Admiral," called Commander Torres, who had been promoted alongside her, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching." "It's big, ma'am." "Really big," Elena nodded grimly. They had known this day would come. "How big?" 5,000 ships, ma'am. Maybe more. It's the largest fleet movement we've ever recorded. The hegemony's Grand Armada was coming to Haven Station, every available ship from all 5 ruling species, united in a desperate attempt to crush the rebellion at its source. If they could destroy humanity's fleet and kill its leaders, they hoped the uprising would collapse. "Send word to all our forces," Elena ordered. "Execute Plan Omega. It's time to show the galaxy what we're really fighting for." Across Haven Station, alarms began to sound. But there was no panic. Humans and aliens worked side by side, preparing for the battle they all knew would decide the war's outcome. Krillian engineers worked alongside human technicians to ready the station's defenses. Tipani swimmers maintained the underwater defense platforms, while Valdris miners checked the asteroid barriers that protected the station's approaches. This was what made the rebellion different from every other war in galactic history. It wasn't one species conquering another. It was dozens of species working together as equals, united by a simple idea: that freedom was worth fighting for. The hegemony Grand Armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 5,000 warships arranged in the traditional battlesphere that had intimidated enemies for centuries. At its center rode the flagship Eternal Throne, a massive vessel that housed all 5 hegemony leaders. War Master Thok of the Morden commanded the combined fleet. His tactical displays showed him the human base, a sprawling complex of shipyards and habitats surrounded by defensive platforms and asteroid barriers. Intelligence estimated 300 defending ships. 5,000 against 300, he announced to the fleet. Today we end this rebellion and restore order to the galaxy. But Admiral Vasquez had studied hegemony tactics for decades. She knew they would come in the traditional formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. What they didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this specific battle since the war began. "All stations report ready," Commander Torres announced. "Very well," Elena said. "Send the message." A transmission went out on all frequencies, reaching every ship in both fleets and broadcasting across the galaxy. Admiral Vasquez appeared on screens everywhere, standing in Haven Station's command center with representatives from a dozen rebel species behind her. "People of the galaxy," she began. "For 8 centuries the hegemony has ruled through fear and force. They have told you that resistance is futile, that their power is absolute. Today we prove them wrong." War Master Thok watched the broadcast with growing anger. "End this transmission and attack immediately." But Elena continued. "Behind me stand Krillians, Tapani, Valdris, and representatives from 20 other species. They stand not as my servants or vassals, but as my equals. As our equals, this is not a war of conquest. This is a war of liberation." She gestured to the tactical display behind her, which showed both fleets facing each other across space. "The hegemony brings 5,000 ships to destroy us. They believe numbers alone will guarantee victory. But they have forgotten that wars are not won by ships alone. They are won by those who have something worth fighting for." The Grand Armada opened fire, thousands of energy weapons reaching across space toward Haven Station. But instead of the devastating bombardment Thok expected, the beam struck a massive energy field that covered the entire station complex. The rebels had linked every ship's shield generator together, creating a barrier that could absorb the firepower of the entire hegemony fleet. "Impossible," Thok breathed. "How are they generating that much power?" His science officer checked the readings twice before answering. "Sir, they're using the station's fusion reactors, the shipyard power cores, even the life support systems. Everything is channeled into that barrier." It was a desperate gambit. If the shield failed, Haven Station would lose all power and life support would fail across the complex. But it gave the rebels something they had never had before: time to implement their real plan. "Now," Elena ordered. Space around the Grand Armada suddenly filled with new contacts. Not ships, these were much smaller. Thousands of automated drones emerged from hidden positions throughout the nebula, each one carrying a single massive explosive charge. Suicide drones, Thok realized, but we can destroy them easily. He was right. Hegemony point defense systems began picking off the drones by the hundreds, but there were too many of them coming from too many directions. While the Grand Armada's weapons were busy with the drones, they couldn't maintain their bombardment of Haven Station, and that's when the real attack began. From concealed positions throughout the star system, human strike forces revealed themselves. Not the 300 ships intelligence had reported, but over 1,000. Fast attack craft, converted freighters loaded with kinetic weapons, and purpose-built warships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and behind gas giant moons. The rebels didn't try to match the Grand Armada's formation. Instead, they struck from every direction at once, using the three-dimensional nature of space combat to their advantage. Human tactics learned from centuries of warfare on Earth were designed for exactly this kind of battle. "All ships scatter formation," Thok ordered. Independent maneuvering. But it was too late. The hegemony had trained for centuries to fight in formation, ship-to-ship duels where superior technology would prevail. They had no experience with swarm tactics, coordinated strikes by hundreds of smaller vessels, or the kind of chaotic battle that humans called furball combat. The rebel ships moved through the Grand Armada like sharks among whales. Fast and maneuverable, they struck at weak points and then disappeared before the massive hegemony vessels could respond. Kinetic weapons punched through energy shields. Gravity mines trapped capital ships in deadly whirlpools of twisted space. Electronic warfare systems jammed communications and sensor networks. But the most devastating weapon was psychological. For the first time in centuries, hegemony crews faced an enemy that wasn't afraid of them. Rebel pilots rammed damaged ships into hegemony vessels without hesitation. Boarding parties of mixed species fought with desperate courage in ship-to-ship actions. The certainty of hegemony superiority crumbled under the assault of enemies who refused to acknowledge it. "Sir," called Thok's tactical officer, "we've lost 800 ships. The humans are coordinating perfectly with the other species." That was the key insight. This wasn't just superior tactics or better training. The rebels fought as a unified force despite being composed of dozens of different species. Humans provided strategic leadership and tactical innovation. Krillians contributed their expertise with electronics and sensors. Tapani offered underwater and zero-gravity combat skills. Valdris miners knew how to use asteroids and debris as weapons. Each species brought their unique strengths to the battle, but they fought with a unity the hegemony had never achieved. The 5 ruling species had always seen each other as rivals, cooperating only when necessary. But the rebels trusted each other completely. "Admiral," Commander Torres called. "The hegemony flagship is breaking formation. It's heading for the station." Elena watched as the Eternal Throne moved toward Haven Station's shield barrier. She could guess what Thok was thinking. If he could destroy the station's command center, he might still salvage victory from disaster. "Let him come," she said. "It's time for the final act." The massive hegemony flagship opened fire on Haven Station's shields with weapons designed to crack planets. The energy barrier held for long minutes, then began to flicker and fail. As the shields collapsed, the Eternal Throne moved in for the killing blow. That's when the station revealed its final secret. The entire complex began to move, massive engines hidden within the structure propelling it away from the flagship's attack. Haven Station wasn't just a shipyard. It was the largest mobile base ever constructed. As the station maneuvered, it revealed weapons platforms that had been hidden beneath its hull. Not energy weapons like the hegemony used, but massive kinetic cannons that fired projectiles the size of shuttlecraft. The Eternal Throne's shields, designed to stop energy beams, were useless against solid matter traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The flagship's hull cracked under the bombardment. Emergency bulkheads sealed breached compartments, but the ship was critically damaged. War Master Thok found himself facing a choice he had never expected: surrender or die. Around the battlefield, the Grand Armada was in full retreat. 3,000 ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remainder fled toward the edge of the system, their formations shattered and their confidence broken. 2 years after the Battle of Haven Station, Elena Vasquez stood before the first Galactic Senate ever assembled. The Great Hall on New Geneva Station held representatives from over 200 species, former vassals and former masters sitting side by side as equals. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine when the Defiance first appeared at that distant jump point. The war had ended 6 months ago, not with a final battle, but with mass surrenders. After Haven Station, hegemony forces had continued fighting, but their heart was no longer in it. When your own vassal species joined the enemy, and your inferior opponents kept winning battles, it became hard to believe in your cause. The turning point had come when the Kethvar, the most mysterious of the hegemony species, had been the first to ask for peace talks. They had always been the wisest of the 5 ruling races, and they understood what the others had not. The old galaxy was gone forever. Now Elena prepared to address the Senate as the first president of the Galactic Republic. The title felt strange to someone who had started this journey as a simple ship captain. But then again, everything about the last 2 years had been strange. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her words being translated into hundreds of languages. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals in a new venture. The Galactic Republic is founded on a simple principle: that all sentient species have the right to determine their own destiny." In the audience, she could see faces that told the story of the war. Tamseth of the Krillian Resistance, now serving as his people's senator. Commander Torres wearing the uniform of the New Republic fleet. Even former War Master Thok of the Morden, who had chosen to work for peace rather than continue a war his people could not win. The old hegemony ruled through fear. Elena continued, "We choose to govern through consent. No species will be forced to join the Republic, and any member may leave if they choose. Our strength comes not from the threat of punishment, but from our commitment to mutual aid and protection." The applause that followed came from beings who had never before been allowed to choose their government. The former hegemony worlds had been given the option to join the Republic or remain independent. Most had chosen to join, though on vastly different terms than their previous subjugation. After the ceremony, Elena walked through New Geneva Station's observation deck. The station orbited a beautiful blue-green world that had been chosen as neutral territory, home to no single species but welcoming to all. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of worlds docking at the station's ports. "Penny for your thoughts, Madam President?" Elena turned to find Admiral Chen approaching. Her old commander had chosen to remain with the military rather than enter politics, but they had remained close friends. "Just thinking about how far we've come," Elena replied. "When we first planned this mission, we hoped to make contact with galactic civilization. I never imagined we'd end up rebuilding it." Chen joined her at the window. The galaxy needed rebuilding. The hegemony had kept the peace, but it was the peace of the graveyard. No growth, no change, no hope for anything better. They watched as a group of young beings from different species played together in the station's central park. Humans, Krillians, Tapani, and others. All children born during the war and growing up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal rather than revolutionary. "Do you think it will last?" Elena asked. "The Republic? Probably not in its current form. Governments evolve. But the idea behind it, that different species can work together as equals, that's changed the galaxy forever." Elena nodded, then frowned as something on her personal communicator caught her attention. "Admiral, you should see this." The message was from the Republic's Long-Range Exploration Service. Deep space sensors had detected something troubling: massive energy signatures from the galactic core, moving in coordinated patterns that suggested intelligence. The hegemony always claimed they were protecting the galaxy from external threats, Chen said after reading the report. "We assumed it was propaganda." "Maybe it wasn't," Elena replied. "The Kethvar mentioned something during the peace negotiations about the old ones from the Galactic Center. I thought it was mythology." They looked out at the peaceful scene beyond the windows, children playing while their parents conducted the business of galactic government. It was everything they had fought to create. But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. "Should we tell the Senate?" Chen asked. Elena considered the question. The Republic was still young, still finding its footing. News of a potential threat from the galactic core might cause panic or worse, a return to the authoritarian policies of the old hegemony. "Not yet," she decided. "We need more information first. And we need to be stronger." "The Exploration Service recommends establishing monitoring stations in the Outer Rim," Chen noted. "Early warning systems in case whatever's out there decides to visit." "Approved. But Admiral, make sure those stations are crewed by mixed species teams. If we're going to face a new threat, we face it together." As they spoke, the original Defiance came into view outside the observation deck. The ship had been carefully preserved and now served as a museum and monument. A plaque near the airlock read, "A single human vessel appeared and lit a spark. That spark became a flame. That flame became freedom." But Elena knew the inscription didn't tell the whole story. Yes, humanity had provided the spark that ignited rebellion across the galaxy. But the flame had been fed by every species that chose to fight for freedom. The victory belonged to all of them. "Madam President," came a voice behind them. Elena turned to see her aide, a young Krillian named Jextar. "The Senate is reconvening. They're ready to vote on the Mutual Defense Treaty." Elena nodded. The treaty would formalize the military cooperation that had won the war, creating a unified defense force for the Republic. It was a logical step, but also a necessary one given the mysterious signals from the galactic core. As they walked back toward the Senate chamber, Elena reflected on the path that had brought them here. The journey from first contact to galactic government had taken only 3 years, but it felt like a lifetime. Humanity had given the galaxy something it had forgotten it could have: hope for a better future. But as they prepared to face whatever came next, Elena knew that hope would need to be backed by strength. The old hegemony had ruled through fear and oppression. The new republic would need to find a different way, one that protected freedom without destroying it in the process. The Senate session that followed was mostly ceremonial. The Mutual Defense Treaty passed by an overwhelming margin, with only a handful of abstentions from species that preferred strict neutrality. But as Elena signed the document that would bind the Republic's military forces together, she couldn't help but think about those troubling signals from the Galactic Center. The hegemony had claimed to protect the galaxy from external threats. Now that responsibility belonged to the Republic. Whatever was stirring in the galactic core, humanity and its allies would face it together. That evening, Elena stood alone on the Defiance's restored bridge. The museum was closed to visitors, but as the woman who had commanded this ship during first contact, she had unlimited access. The bridge looked exactly as it had 3 years ago, down to the coffee stains on her old command chair. "Computer," she said to the ship's restored AI system, "display long-range sensor data from Sector 77 Alpha." The main screen filled with astronomical data from the galactic core. Energy patterns that defied easy explanation. Movement on a scale that suggested intelligence vast and ancient. Whatever lived in the galactic center, it was finally stirring after eons of sleep. "Beginning new log entry," Elena said softly. "President's personal log, stardate 2157.3. The Galactic Republic has been established and the galaxy is at peace for the first time in centuries. But our sensors have detected troubling activity from the galactic core. It appears we may face a new threat, one that makes the old hegemony look like children playing with toys." She paused, looking out at the stars through the bridge's viewports. Somewhere out there, ancient powers were awakening, but humanity would not face them alone. The galaxy had learned to unite against tyranny. Now it would need to unite against whatever came next. "However," she continued, "I have faith in what we've built here. The Republic isn't just a government, it's an idea. The idea that different peoples can work together as equals, that diversity is strength, that freedom is worth any sacrifice. Whatever challenges lie ahead, we'll face them together." She ended the log entry and made her way back to her quarters. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions to make as President of the Galactic Republic. But tonight, she was content to remember how it all began, with a single human vessel appearing in hostile space, carrying a simple message of peace. That message had changed the galaxy, and Elena Vasquez, once captain of the Defiance and now president of the Galactic Republic, was proud to have been the one to deliver it. Outside her window, the stars shone with the light of 200 worlds where freedom had replaced fear. It was a good beginning.